Lights, camera, action.
Awesome.
Hi, Ellie. Thank you so much for
Hi.
joining me on this podcast.
I'm very excited.
You are the owner, is that
Yes.
correct?
Well, I don't know what you're going to say.
Of the world as a whole. It's Vojo.health, advanced vegan nutrition, high performance lifestyle for vegans. You help people adjust their diet to their genes, optimize their sports performance, lose weight, get super healthy. So I'm very excited to have you here, and I think there's a lot of vegans out there who they're okay. You know, their genetics are perfect. They find the vegan diet very easy, and if anyone's struggling, they can be maybe a little bit critical. And I think I really appreciate the work that you've done to look into understanding why some vegans might struggle on a vegan diet, how we can help them and have compassion towards people that are not ideally suited to being a vegan genetically, but they want to succeed.
Yeah, totally.
So can I ask you what got you interested in the vegan genetics?
What got me interested were my own difficulties, actually. So, when I went vegan like 10 years ago now, and for the first few years, I was one of those really annoying vegans. I was like, it's easy, everyone can do it. Like, there's no excuse. It's just like you just stop eating meat and you start eating more veg, easy. And then at like year 4 or 5, I suddenly started getting some issues. I started feeling really fatigued and like um, inflamed. Like I'd get injured with running. It's just like my brain wasn't functioning properly. So yeah, there were some issues. I was like, I don't really understand what I'm doing wrong. I'm doing everything that generally people should do when they go vegan, right? Um, and then at the same time, actually, I was studying for my master's in nutrition and learning all about genetics and personalized diets. And when I looked at my own genes, I was like, okay, there's definitely some things I can do here. So yeah, that started the whole journey. And for me, there's never an excuse to give up on veganism. It's not like there's no excuse. It's like with everything in life, if you come across obstacles, if you're determined, you're like, right, what can I do about this? How can I overcome this? And how can I keep on going? And you find a solution and you figure it out. But I just want to make that process super easy for people so they don't have to put so much effort into figuring out, because I
Right.
enjoy figuring out.
Well, it sounds like you were kind of ideally placed to figure it out, and there's probably a lot of people that really have got no
Mhm.
idea what's going on. But you could access your genes while studying your master's degree. That's really quite incredible.
Well, we were learning all about how genes, nutrigenomics is the science word, how your genes affect your nutrient needs. And as we were doing it, basically a lot of the a lot of the class were like, right, we should do our own genes. We should be able to apply this and see, because learning everything is more fun when you can apply it to something real, like your own situation. So yeah.
What deficiencies did you find you had, or what issues did your genes turn up?
So, I iron is a problem one for me. So there's a gene which means that you can't store iron as well. It codes for transferrin, which is the thing that helps you, like, not absorb iron, but to actually store it in your cells for later use, which is called ferritin. That's like your long-term iron stores. Um, so I realized that was something, iron was something that I really, really needed to focus on, maybe a lot more than other people, especially as a runner too. Like you rupture, and a female, but as a runner, you rupture blood cells as you run. there are studies that show that you can increase your iron absorption to counteract for that. But because I have more of a problem with the storage, that was something that I really needed to focus on. So that was one of the main things for me.
Iron is it can be dangerous for other people to supplement. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
there's another gene which determines whether you have a condition called hemochromatosis. So, great word, love that word. It basically means that you absorb too much iron. And this used to be really beneficial when people didn't eat meat so much, like tens of thousands of years ago. And when tribes or communities were living in areas with poor oil content of minerals and stuff, it was a really useful gene to have. In today's society, not so useful anymore, especially when so many people are eating meat, and having high levels of iron stores is actually not good for you. It's correlated with chronic illnesses like heart disease and diabetes and stuff like that. So hemochromatosis is not a gene that you want to have. And if you do have it, you probably shouldn't supplement iron because you're already absorbing a lot more from your food.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing for
I
vegans,
think
though.
the vegan diet as a, but isn't there quite a lot of iron in like green vegetables and beans? And I thought iron was fairly common on the vegan
Yeah,
diet.
no, there is a lot of iron in beans and lentils and stuff, especially. And I think that if you're eating those foods, you're all right. But from the people I speak to, it's like, you eat beans or lentils maybe once or twice a week. Um, in general, I would say that's not enough. And especially for me, I make sure that I eat like 2 or 3 portions a day. So, yeah, I would.
Do you think vegans in general should supplement iron, or it is a bit dangerous because of this?
I think most people shouldn't need to supplement iron. I think that you can get it from your food. Um, and But if you do have low levels, like tracking your level is also important. If you do have low levels of ferritin, at that stage, I would say definitely supplement and get your levels up. Um, but if you have a few genes which mean that you're really not that good at absorbing or storing iron, then it could be a necessity for some people. It might be something that just makes your life a lot easier.
It because I'm making a supplement, and iron was one of the things which was a bit tricky for me to consider. I ended up putting just a very small amount in because we didn't want to make it toxic for people that have enough iron or this genetic variation. But it sounds like people should really get their genes tested.
Well, I
sure.
always think so. How much did you put in your supplement?
So at the moment, it's just 1.5 milligrams, like a very small dose, just to acknowledge that iron is something we have to look out for. But it's it's only like, I don't know, it's like 10% of the RDA or something, very low. What do you think would be a good amount?
I always try to take a more personalized approach, but I would say that what you've added is probably good because you definitely don't want to add too much iron. That's like the last thing that you want to do. And because already, just like irrespective of genes, men and women need different amounts. And if you're postmenopausal or premenopausal, like children need, everybody needs a completely different amount of iron. So I think going for the low end of the spectrum is definitely the better option.
That and vitamin A was another tricky one,
Yeah.
isn't it? But what else did you find? Anything else that helped you in your genetic quest?
Yeah, actually, vitamin A was for me personally another one. Like I don't convert beta carotene to vitamin A very well. So vitamin A is the version you get from animal foods, right? But for vegans, we get it all as beta carotene, and we convert it ourselves to vitamin A. And vitamin A is what you need for your immune system. It's what you need for your eyes, for your eye health, and for your skin, and like, yeah. So really making sure also I'm getting enough orange veg and like dark green leafy veg is like a real another important part for my diet.
And how common is this vitamin A gene variant?
Actually, so with your genes, we never just look at one gene. You know, there's always a group of genes, or there's always several mutations in the one gene. So with no nutrient or anything, do we ever just look at one mutation? That just never happens. There's obviously some which are more important, or they have more of an effect, but you need to look at them as a whole. With the beta carotene conversion gene, there are 3 important mutations in that one gene. And having 1 is relatively common. Having 2 is quite uncommon. Having 3, I haven't actually seen that yet. So
You can be slightly bad, and totally fucked, as they say.
or you can be great, you know, and it's not about being good or bad. It's about figuring out just like your strategies, and what's good for you, and just working with your body.
So how was the change for you? Because I hear like if you have a vitamin A deficiency, it can be overnight you get a big boost of energy. How did you feel when you started supplementing?
I definitely didn't have a big boost of energy. I think especially with iron, like it takes a little while to build up your stores of ferritin, especially. So if you do have low ferritin stores and you are anemic, you can have low ferritin stores without being anemic as well. But it does take a few weeks. And to be honest, it did take me a number of weeks to feel good again. But yeah, with other things, like I know you put choline in your supplement, and that's a really interesting one. My my ex-partner used to, like, we both tried supplementing choline at the same time. And he had a massive boost in like cognitive energy. His brain just was like on fire straight away. And for me, I was like, yeah, it's kind of all right, but like I didn't experience it like he
Yeah.
did. And that was an interesting one because the gene that you need to make choline, like he had the one that was very slow in making choline, and mine's okay. So, but that gene is incredibly common in Europe, like not being able to make enough choline. So the fact that you put that in your supplement, I think, is a really good thing, because actually most people need
Yeah.
extra choline.
Well, choline, my experience of choline was like your partner's. Well, you know, there's a few different types of choline. The cheaper supplements like choline bitartrate, they can't cross the blood-brain barrier, so they don't turn into neurotransmitters. So when I first supplemented with choline bitartrate, I didn't really notice anything. But I tried CDP choline, and that does change. That goes into the brain and gets turned into neurotransmitters. And I felt like I'd taken, I don't know, some class A substances. It was like electricity was shooting through my body. It was incredible. It was within 2 days I felt a huge change. And that really kind of inspired me, because I've been thinking about making this supplement for a while, but it was when I tried CDP choline that I was like, all right, we've got to really push forward with this idea.
Yeah, no, I think that for me, that's one of the most important parts of your supplement, for sure. Because even you saw such a difference, but think about pregnant women, for example, you need more choline. And like most people just aren't getting enough. Like
Right.
there's not much choline in plant foods. I mean, like there's a little bit in a lot of plant foods, But if you add it up, it's like you do have to kind of plan to try and get enough. And for me, even though I don't see that much of a cognitive difference in myself, I still supplement it because I know how important it is.
You can, I think
Um,
the babies can get neural tube defects if there's not enough choline in the pregnant woman. So that's something to look out for sure. Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, choline also works with folate. And
Yes.
there's a very significant gene which means that a lot of people have to have significantly higher amounts of folate. And if your body can use some folate to make some choline, it can kind of use
Yeah.
both a little bit. But if you're low on folate and you have that gene, and you're low on choline, and you have the choline gene, it's like, yeah.
And do you test for the folate gene in Vojo Health, I guess? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, I think I'll definitely have to get my wife to take that test before she gets pregnant. And I really want to do it as soon as possible as well, actually, to see what else is going on. So, apart from those, you were okay, were you? Or was there anything else?
Those were the most significant ones for me. With omega-3, there's like this is quite a big story in the vegan world, and there's two very distinct bank camps. It's like the people who advocate chia seeds and flax seeds, and that's all you need. You can get all your omega-3 from that. And then there's the people that advocate. More and more people are starting to talk about algal oil and the fact that you need to supplement DHA, right? But there's a gene that makes that conversion. Like you do need DHA. That's what you need in the end. But some people can convert plant-based omega-3 into DHA much better than other people. And I'm one of the fast converters, which is great. But there's a bit of a caveat here because it's the same enzyme which converts omega-3 and omega-6. And so if you eat too much omega-6 and like processed food, vegetable oil, all of these things, it gets very quickly converted into inflammatory products, which isn't good. So for me, I have to be super careful to not eat too much processed food, and I never use vegetable oil, for example. And to be honest, I wouldn't advocate that anybody uses vegetable oil, but for these people especially who have this fast conversion, it's not a good
What
idea.
can you use coconut oil, or is there any other oil that you can use?
I personally use olive oil. That's, yeah, my personal choice, because it's relatively low in omega-6. It hasn't got any omega-3 either, but I I wouldn't rely on oils for omega-3 anyway, because rapeseed oil, which is high in omega-3, but even higher in omega-6.
Yeah,
So when you're trying to get the
right.
balance right,
That's
it's like it's not
the
super
ratio is very
useful.
important. Um,
Mm. But omega-3 is a very interesting one because there's quite a few genes that determine what you need. And even though I'm a fast converter, I have the gene which means that I have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And there's evidence to show that supplementing DHA really can help with that. So I still supplement it, in addition to eating chia seeds as
Good
well.
for you. I think well, people as a whole, as they get older, their brains start to deteriorate. We lose about 5% a year from 30, and it might get worse. And they've shown that omega-3 can help that. I guess it probably does depend on the genotypes as well. But certainly,
Mhm.
they showed eating a little bit of fish helps you maintain your brain health. But that, obviously, you can take the algal oil. DHA is the main constituent of the nerve cells in the brain. It lines the membranes. So it's a key component into our making new brain cells. And so, yeah, keeping our brains intact and stopping them from turning into powder as we age is quite important to have DHA. And it works synergistically with CDP choline, because that converts to uridine in the brain, which is also a key component of brain cells, and they showed that, you know, together they can really help your brain stay functional. You can remember more as you age, and yeah, there's a lot of benefits. Also, they say as you get older, you if you're not regenerating your brain cells, it's much harder to create new synapses. So you become more stuck in your ways and a fossil, as they call them.
Man, I do not want my brain to be fossilized.
So with Vojo Health, you also help people lose weight and find a diet that helps them, you know, lose weight according to their genes.
There's actually a lot of genes related to your weight and how best to manage it. So I'm not going to bore you with all of them because they all work differently, and they're all to do with how you metabolize and burn fat, carbohydrate, energy in general, and your hunger hormones, for example, your levels of satiety hormones. Like they just all play such different roles. And again, that's why we look at them as a whole and we work out the best strategies for you personally to manage your weight. If I'll give you an example from myself, I have a gene called FTO. It's actually dubbed the fat gene because people who have this gene, so there's two versions of it. I have like the intermediate version, which is like, but it's more manageable. But people who have this gene and they have the double one, they on average they eat 300 more calories a day. And scientists for years were like, we don't really know why. We can't figure out why these people eat more. Like nobody really knew what the gene actually did. It turns out that it works in several different ways. But one thing that it seems to be correlated with is your levels of your satiety hormones. So the hormone that goes up as you eat, and it tells you that you're full, you know, before your stomach starts hurting.
Ghrelin?
It sends signals to your, yes, no, ghrelin is the hunger hormone. Leptin is the hormone that tells you you're full. So this is your brain signals, and it's like, you need to stop eating because, you know, you've had enough. The people that have the FTO gene, they don't have these strong signals to tell them to stop eating. So, you know, I'll find myself going for seconds. Sometimes I'll eat until I really physically feel quite ill. And I used to do that a lot. Seriously, it's a big problem.
Food tastes so good, I don't blame you.
It does, but when you compare it to people who don't have this gene, it's like they do actually find it much easier to realize when they're full. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I've eaten enough. Like I don't need to carry on eating. For people with the FTO gene, it's really important to have these strategies in place to know that those are your tendencies and to serve yourself one portion, for example, and be like, I don't need to eat more after this. You have to cognitively make that logical decision. And that's how I manage it. There's also evidence to show that another way to manage your weight if you have this gene is by doing aerobic exercise. So if you do enough exercise, it turns out that people with this gene can manage their weight as easily as someone without that gene.
I've got a feeling I've got this gene because I love to eat. So
yeah.
What sort of exercise do you recommend? Like gentle aerobic, or did you say anaerobic? Or was it aerobic?
No, I said aerobic.
So like jogging and that sort of thing?
Yeah, for me personally, mostly, aerobic exercise. But again, there's other genes that kind of determine what sort of exercise is best for you. There's a few others related to your weight, but then there's some related to the structure of your muscle fibers and how you recover and stuff like this. So that's, something else that Vojo does. We connect up like how you need to eat and your lifestyle to manage your weight and to exercise in the healthiest way for you.
Can it recommend us like how frequently we should eat, and like snacking, is that good or bad? I love to graze and just eat little bits of nuts here and there, but
Well, yeah, people are different. Like some people, they get a lot more benefits from fasting than other people. So yeah, so it does. Vojo does tell you whether you're more suited to like a more intermediate fasting style diet, or
Intermittent, is that?
whether you can choose. Sorry, yeah, intermittent.
I that benefits
um,
me a lot actually. I find I lose a lot of water when I do intermittent fasting. It's like I and it helps me control my appetite because my brain is like, okay, now you're not going to eat after this time, and it's okay with that. Whereas if I'm just on a no rules diet, I'll just sort of nibble and snack all 24 hours a day.
yeah, it can help regulate some people's metabolism. So yeah, it can help regulate levels of a hormone called adenopectin. And it sounds like for you, it's really beneficial for you because it helps you manage your hunger hormones and your metabolism. And yeah,
You also focus.
it would be so cool if we had your genes as well, actually. Then we
I
could
think we
kind of
should.
talk about your habits in relation to your genes.
Maybe we could do another podcast another time after I get my genes back, and you tell
Yeah.
me that I destroyed my genome from excessive drinking. Okay.
All right.
So looking at brain biochemistry, do you take a genetic approach to helping people balance their brain hormones and biochemistry? Can that be tailored to individual needs?
Yeah. So one of the areas we look at, and like your plan or your kind of recommendations that you get are very much based on your goals. So if mental well-being is one of your goals, then that's something that we really focus on. But yeah, like balancing your serotonin and your dopamine levels, obviously your acetylcholine levels, which are very important neurotransmitters that make you like regulate your mood, help you concentrate and focus. Of course, dopamine is the reward hormone, so that also plays into eating as well, like how satisfied you are from eating. And also looking at your stress resilience as well, and how you can best eat and your best lifestyle choices to manage your stress levels.
I mean,
We can go into more of the
yeah. I mean,
biochemistry if you want.
kind of interested into the how what sort of foods can boost your serotonin and dopamine because we all want a bit more of that.
With serotonin, actually, omega-3 is one of the main foods that, well, nutrients you can get, which will help boost your serotonin levels. It supports the enzyme which synthesizes serotonin. And some people, depending on your genes, might synthesize serotonin like it might not be as functional. So omega-3 can really help with that, and that's why we do hear that omega-3 is beneficial for your
Yeah.
mood. The problem is with the studies that we have currently, it's like some studies show an improvement, some studies don't. It's like, what's the answer? Well, that we have that contradictory advice because we're not taking this personalized approach. We're not looking at people's genes and seeing what actually is more beneficial for them in terms on the level of their genetics and their enzymes. We're just giving a load of people omega-3 and seeing what happens. And a lot of the time it's like, oh, nothing happens because it benefits some people and it doesn't benefit others. So overall it's not significant.
Right, I see. Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? But also some of the long-term benefits of omega-3 supplementation you wouldn't notice. Yeah, you wouldn't really notice until you're like 60 or 70 if you're not having like brain scans that your brain is actually deteriorated. So
Yeah, no, a lot of, like with omega-3 especially, it's one of those ones that you just like you have to take it to as a preventative measure, especially if you need it, especially if you have the Alzheimer's gene, for example. It's like you're not going to wait until you're 70
Oof.
and you start getting Alzheimer's. Like that's too late.
Do you also check for Alzheimer's genes and stuff like this?
Yeah, we do. And that's why I personally supplement DHA because I have that gene. It's a bit of an ethical dilemma, really, isn't it? Because I think some people they do want to know, and like other people, they really don't want to know. like my brother, for example, he was like, I literally don't want to know. Don't tell me if I have this gene. I was like, okay. So about most of the people I've asked, most people want to know because, if you know, you can do
Yeah.
something about it.
That's the ostrich technique, is just put your head under the sand and hope everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
No, I think we definitely have to...
I don't advocate that
No,
technique.
me neither. That sounds very temporary in its effectivity.
With dopamine, dopamine is a very interesting one because it's not just about maybe having not enough. There's quite a few people that have too much dopamine, and that's also not great. There's the gene that breaks down your neurotransmitters, especially dopamine. Some people it doesn't. It's slow, so you can build up a lot of dopamine when you're stressed, for example. And then you can't break it down. Like dopamine changes into adrenaline, which changes like you know what adrenaline's like. It's like heart racing, and it can be quite stressful if you have too much of it. So yeah, it's really about looking at whether you might be on the low side or whether you might be on the high side, and the strategies are very different. But that's an especially interesting one because this gene is relatively common.
That's fascinating. And so then you can eat food to regulate dopamine as well, apart from just chocolate
Yeah.
and cocaine.
Yeah, so obviously protein is is great for boosting your dopamine levels. Getting those amino acids is super important, and maybe not focusing, like not relying on cocaine so much.
Oh dear. But tyrosine, that's something that turns into dopamine. Can we get that in food? Is tyramine related to that? Is that like in cheese and stuff? Obviously, we don't eat cheese. But what sort of foods do you recommend to boost your dopamine levels?
Yeah, so basically, protein is great, but like you say, tyrosine, that's the amino acid that dopamine is made out of, and you can, like, for some people it can be beneficial to supplement that. So if you're if you have the genetic variant, which means you're on the lower side, it's just a nice boost in the morning to take it, and you can get your brain into gear a lot faster, and it's like it's not harmful. It's like that I would recommend that if you're on the lower side. If you're on the other side of the equation, I definitely would not recommend supplementing tyrosine because you could go a bit crazy.
I've actually experienced both sides of that. I was trying to make a supplement to boost my cognition and stuff. Tyrosine was part of it, and to begin with, it was very good. But actually, after a few weeks or a couple of weeks, I went completely mad. Well, I was like in a permanent state of panic. I couldn't figure out why, but then when I stopped taking the tyrosine, I was fine. So yeah, tyrosine, yeah.
Sounds like you may have the COMT gene, which stops you breaking down excess dopamine. Yeah. Maybe.
Do you think that can regulate addictions as well? Because I've struggled with addictions in the past.
That's a very interesting one because it's not just about your dopamine synthesis. It's also about the sensitivity of your receptors for dopamine. So you can have high levels of dopamine but low sensitivity of your receptors, which means that you can be susceptible to addiction. If you have this low sensitivity, you're always trying to increase your dopamine levels because you need them to connect to those receptors and have an effect. And that, it can be a bit of a catch-22 because you're increasing your dopamine levels. You already have high dopamine levels. They're not having the effect you need. And the more you get addicted to a substance, the more desensitized you get to dopamine. So it's like it just gets worse, and you get into this cycle where it's very hard to get out of it. And that's what addiction is.
I successfully used psychedelic drugs to break my addictions in the past, just a side note. Although, again, I don't recommend them without some sort of assistance. But no, yeah, they definitely help you take a step back and analyse what's going on and figure out what might be quite an obvious problem.
Yeah, another method is meditation. There's studies that show that meditation increases dopamine binding in your brain. So it doesn't increase synthesis, but it increases the amount of dopamine that's binding to your receptors. So it still has this kind of reward dopaminergic effect. And that can be another way that if you have this lower sensitivity, you can overcome it.
I actually try and do an hour in the morning every day, so maybe that's why I'm addicted to meditation.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I like to take
an hour is it's quite something. That's pretty cool.
I've done maybe 7 or 8 10-day Vipassanas in my existence so far.
Wow.
One of them was on a mountain by myself, which was quite interesting.
Completely alone?
Yeah, no tent, just trying to do it old school way.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
And I like to do cold baths. I find a cold bath in the morning helps my brain. I think that resets the opioid system, doesn't it? You produce a lot of dynorphin, which is like the opposite of endorphin, and then it sort of resensitizes your brain to endorphins and stuff. So that's
I don't know about this, so that's something I've learned today.
Try a freezing cold bath tomorrow morning, and you'll be happy all day.
At the moment, I'm staying somewhere with no central heating, so I think I'm not going to do that. But thank you.
So, how can we optimize our sports performance with a whole food, plant-based diet?
One of the main things that we look at is how you recover. So obviously, like for performance, a lot of nutrients are important, like B12 and iron and all of those things. But recovery is key because it's how your muscles repair themselves and how quickly they can do that, and how you avoid injury. Some people are much more susceptible to higher inflammation levels, which is, it's okay when you're doing exercise. Something called IL-6 goes up, and that's an inflammatory cytokine. Sounds bad, but actually when you're doing exercise, when you're running, for example, it's a good thing. It helps your muscles repair. The problem starts when your levels stay high. So after you've completed your exercise, if your levels should drop back down. Some people have a gene which means they just have higher baseline levels of this. So it means your levels might be too raised after exercise. And that's one of the things that it's really important to think about when it comes to how best to recover. So really, if you have this gene, like focusing on more anti-inflammatory foods. Again, so man, let's keep talking about omega-3. But omega-3 is a really important one again. And also, if you just making sure you're eating, if you've got this gene, like really focusing on those really colorful foods, those phytonutrients, and like filling your body with the anti-inflammatories.
You mentioned earlier that before you were doing raw food. Do you still eat raw, or do you cook your vegetables now?
No, I did eat some more raw foods. That was a long time ago, though. That was like maybe 8 years ago or something. A raw food diet, like 100%, is like, it's almost impossible, I would say, because cooking food is actually really are really great to get the nutrients from them a lot easier. It like starts the digestive process. And for example, things like spinach, if you eat a lot of raw spinach, it has very high levels of the anti-nutrient oxalic acid, which stops you absorbing so much calcium. So that's something that in general I wouldn't advocate, but especially if you have this genes in vitamin D, which means that your vitamin D receptors don't function as well, and these are the ones that stimulate calcium absorption. If these don't work so well, a higher dose of vitamin D for a start, but cooking your veg as well to break down the anti-nutrients so you can actually absorb more of the calcium. I know a lot of people eat raw spinach, and that's something that I'm like, it's not something that I would recommend, and especially these people. But
What about Popeye? Was his tin was pre-cooked, wasn't it? Popeye, I think.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I don't eat raw stuff much. I know some people are interested in it, but I think according to Chinese medicine, it's like not very good for the kidneys and other organs and stuff like this. So
it's like it's more work for your body, you know. Like if you're sprouting and stuff. Now, sprouting is great if you have the time to soak all your beans and pulses and sprout them. That's fantastic. But in general, a lot of vegetables, like cooking them is it's not a bad thing. I think there was a kind of mindset maybe 10 or 20 years ago where it's like cooking vegetables breaks down like all the good nutrients, and actually a lot of these studies found that a lot of the nutrients were just lost in the water because a lot of nutrients are water soluble, so if you're boiling your veg they go into the water. So it's more about figuring out other cooking techniques rather than losing all your water soluble vitamins to the water.
So avoid boiling, but probably steaming might be better than boiling, I guess.
Steaming is great, yeah. And things like, I always advocate pressure cooking. I'm in love with my pressure cooker. I literally use it every day almost, because it's so great at breaking down the anti-nutrients. And also if you get the amount of water right with beans and stuff, you don't have to throw much water away, and you can cook whole dishes in there, so you're actually using the water anyway.
That sounds scary, like something might explode if you do it wrong, but I get...
Nah, it doesn't explode.
I've not actually tried it.
Although you do have to remember to put the pot in before you start putting water and vegetables in. That's not a good idea. I maybe made that mistake once. You only do it once.
And because you die. The lid, no.
Well, no. At least when I've done it, it wasn't plugged in, which is would have been worse if it was plugged in. But
okay, well that's something I'll definitely look at because I've never tried pressure cooking. I'm making a note.
Seriously, man, you've got to buy one. Instant Pot, wholeheartedly recommend them. They're amazing. You can buy ones now. I'm really upset because now they brought out one that does air frying, and you can dehydrate in it. You can do everything in it. I'm like, I just have this one that pressure cooks.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, there's a reduction in atherosclerosis in vegans compared to omnivores. Some people were pointing maybe TMAO might be related to that. For people that don't know, TMAO is a byproduct of digesting carnitine and choline. It can be caused by bacteria in the gut. However, I mean, I did a lot of research into this. I'll hold my opinion, but I'll ask what you think about TMAO. Do we need to be aware? Do we have to be wary about TMAO in supplementation, or not so much?
TMAO has definitely been correlated with omnivorous diets, so eating meat and the choline and carnitine that you get from meat and the bacteria that metabolizes it, as you say. I've also done a lot of research into this, and I haven't found any evidence that choline, DPD, so choline, citicholine, can have any effect on TMAO. So that's as far as my research has gone, that I couldn't find anything else that could illuminate what is like more specifically going on. But I would say no, from the research we have, that choline supplements don't seem to cause any issues with TMAO and atherosclerosis. So maybe it's something to do with the microbiome in meat eaters, because the microbiome in meat eaters is very different. There's lots of studies that show there's different bacteria in your gut when you go vegan, and that happens quite quickly. So I guess it's something to do with what type of bacteria you have in your gut as well. But yeah, this is just a theory. I don't have the evidence to back that theory up.
Well, yeah, there is evidence. There were some studies which showed when they supplemented vegans with, I think it was choline, they didn't increase their TMAO levels at all, actually, because.
Oh yeah, no, we do have evidence for that for sure.
But it might change if you supplement it regularly. However, what I was seeing was a lot of the studies that were showing the damage from TMAO. They were using like 100 times larger dose of TMAO than what would be found in eating a steak. And actually, when they looked at low doses of TMAO, there was not really any damage. It might even have a slightly protective effect. And also, TMAO is related to. It's not just something that they find by itself. They often find it with elevated levels of things like creatinine and other like stuff, which indicates that it's actually. The function of the kidneys in the people that were developing atherosclerosis was subpar. The kidneys were not functioning very well, and the correlation between TMAO and atherosclerosis is probably more related to kidney disease. And yeah, citicholine in particular doesn't have any effect on TMAO. I think choline bitartrate might have some effect.
That makes sense, because I guess if the choline crosses the blood-brain barrier and it's being used by your brain instead of like hanging around in the rest of your body.
Yes.
That would make a lot of sense. It
goes through I think it passes the digestive tract before the bacteria. It is bacteria which creates TMAO. I think it can cross the intestine more effectively. Carnitine, is that something you recommend to your patients?
Personally, I haven't researched so much into carnitine. It's not something that I generally focus on. It sounds like you know a lot more about it than I do.
Well, I mean, it is a carny nutrient. So one of the... I was looking into carny nutrients, as vegans in general don't have as much carny nutrients as carnivores. So yeah, I think it's correlated to quite a few beneficial effects: memory, brain function, especially acetyl L-carnitine can help brain function, aerobic exercise. So yeah, I think carnitine is quite important, and there's probably some genes that are related to it, because it is something that we can make in our bodies, but not all of it. Or some studies were showing that in general vegans can have about 40% less carnitine in their blood than omnivores, which is quite a significant amount.
I've actually just looked up what you make carnitine from, because I forgot. And it's lysine, so that's an amino acid that you can get from a vegan diet. But yeah, again, it's like, can you get enough of it?
I feel like
So I think it's one of those things that, it's not going to harm you to supplement, and it's probably going to be
Yeah.
beneficial.
I mean, I supplement it.
But yeah,
Anyway, just in case.
yeah.
And I think they have beneficial effects with, like, especially acetylcarnitine and choline. I think together they have a good cognitive boosting synergistic effect. I mean, there's two types of supplement. There's L-carnitine and there's acetyl L-carnitine. They're the two main types. There's other types actually, but one of them's more to do with brain function, and the other is more to do with exercise and recovery. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there might be some genes to look at some point with that.
Man, you're giving me some homework. I'm probably going to spend all night researching this.
Great.
It's the problem when two nutritionists get together.
No, I mean, it's very, very stimulating.
Is it something you add to your supplement?
Yeah, I've got.
carnitine?
I'm including two types of carnitine: acetyl L-carnitine and just L-carnitine. People use it in like sports formulas to sort of boost some sort of energy levels. There's quite a few. If you go and examine, there's a lot of historical studies with carnitine. They've known about it for like 100 years, and it's more beneficial in elderly people and people with low carnitine levels. And there's been some examples of. I mean, I saw this study. There was like an 11-year-old kid who was vegan from a very early age, and he had severe nausea and sickness and like really, really bad health issues. And they found when they supplemented him with carnitine, he was completely fine. Which is, yeah. But I think he probably had a gene variant which was made him more at risk from low carnitine levels, or not able to produce it in his body as well.
Carnitine is the one that helps you burn fat, right? It's like it's involved in fatty acid metabolism.
Correct. Yeah, and that can be in the brain and in the body.
Okay, yeah, I think there is like a specific gene which it's like a very serious rare mutation which prevents you from synthesizing it at all. Yeah, okay.
I mean, this kid seemed to be okay. I don't know actually. Maybe he had severe health issues his whole life. Actually, you might be right.
Yeah, there are some. I think it is cell carnitine. I think there is a very significant gene which means that you can't make it at all, and that can have significant implications. And that's the thing with genes. It's like you get these genes that you get these symptoms from birth because they might be very rare genes, but you only need that one gene that has that effect, and it's very significant. Maybe it stops you doing something entirely, your body doing something. Whereas a lot of the genes we look at are more functional, so it's more like we look at a whole range of genes for just one thing, and it's more like how to optimize it rather than this one significant gene, which is pretty much all or nothing. But yeah, because a lot of the time with those genes, you know about it, like you know about it from when you're born or from a very young age. So it's not something that most of the time people need to know.
And actually, another key point that I found after a lot of research was actually, if you combine resveratrol with carnitine or choline, it stops the production of TMAO altogether. So we've included a bit of resveratrol in our supplement just to be safe.
Yeah, resveratrol is a very powerful antioxidant as well. It's very interesting substance.
All right. So is there anything else that you feel we should be discussing to do with Vojo Health and the genetic tests that you offer?
I don't think we've talked about a lot.
Yeah,
We've talked about a lot of
yeah.
biochemistry here. I don't know
I
if
think
if anyone wants to hear
I
more
think
about biochemistry,
people's brains are
unfortunately.
probably starting to turn off now. We've done an hour, which is great. So yeah, well, I think we'll probably wrap this up about now. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me, and
It's been great to speak to you. I've learned a lot too, so it's been
thank you
great.
so much. And hopefully we can do this again. And I'll order a couple of DNA tests for me and my wife and see what turns up.
I can't wait to try your supplement as well. I'm very excited.
So for people watching or listening, it's Vojo VOJO .health. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
And that, yeah, the DNA test is £99. You get access to all your personalized diet and everything on your profile. And actually, until Christmas, I'm going to be adding a special COVID report because COVID is related to a number of genes, and looking at those can help us determine like how to protect yourself from getting it, and also how to recover. Like some of these genes can make people very susceptible to long COVID symptoms as well. So helping people figure out the best way for them to recover. Yeah, now that more and more people are getting it, I think that's more important than ever. So yeah, for the rest of this year, that's just an additional free thing.
And so how long does it take for your reports to come back once people send off?
So it takes a few weeks. Can take between like 3-6 weeks being the absolute maximum.
And yeah, do you get the full sports and diet and all this sort of recommendations as well? Or, yeah.
Yeah, no, you get everything. It's just that you can explore as much as you want into your results. It's just that your action plan, like what you should focus on, the actions you should focus on, are based on your goals and also your most significant genes. So we just help you prioritize, but everything is there for you.
Great. All right. Thanks, Ellie. We'll include a link so people can check that out. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Thank you so much.